Good evening to all of you faithful viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Anna Bilaliku. Our major stories right away. Following the deadly floods which cost the lives of at least 2 people in Boya recently, the Boya Council is taking measures to give way for water from the mountain. Thus, several houses are now being demolished, especially those on waterways. Our reporters or our special envoy, Babila Jonathan, is in Boya and we will be telling you the actual situation in this edition of the news. Plus, insecurity is said to be on a drastic rise or increase in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. In less than a month, several persons have been kidnapped before being killed in the nation's political capital. What is actually happening in Yaoundé? Stay with us for an answer in this edition of the news. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for always according us your time every 6 p.m. for the news in the English language. We now take you to Boya, where the inhabitants are still to come out of their shock following floods that caused enormous material damage and even loss of human lives. The inhabitants of the areas affected by last Saturday's floods in Boya are still grappling with the destruction recorded. The Boya Council is now destroying houses built on waterways. Our special envoy to Boya is Babila Jonathan. Hello, Babila. What is happening in Boya Town, Bova, and other localities affected by the floods?
Several persons are still suffering the consequences of the floods, the heavy floods that hit some parts of the southwest regional capital, Boya, last Saturday. And we're going to talk to one of the victims, Christopher Duru. He's a Nigerian national. He was born here in the town of Boya and he's been living here for several years. His wife is presently hospitalized as a result of the flooding that affected him seriously. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Tell us what exactly happened while your wife was here doing business as usual on Saturday.
Yes, what really happened is that on Saturday, they called me on my phone and they tell me that I should come very quick, that there is a minor accident. I don't know that my wife, the house have collapsed upon her in the store. So she was the one selling in the store. While I went out for other duties, and when I came here, I saw that she was already down and there is no car to carry her. So the main thing that happened is that she was inside the store and the water came behind and flowed just within a twinkle of eye. Everything fell on top her and all the goods, the water carried it away. And by the grace of God, God used some people to rescue her. She came out and presently she is in the regional hospital. Everything about the store is gone. The water carried everything away. Everything is gone. So, but I thank God that the life of my wife was safe.
More than 300 houses. As you can see, most of the houses, the occupants here, they build their houses beside the gutter, the passage of the flood.
From Boya Town, we continue to Bova village on the outskirts of Boya Town, where enormous destruction took place during the heavy downpour last Saturday. Enormous material damage was recorded as the flood swept through the neighborhood. This waterway is very deep as 6 meters, and right above there is a road, and that's where somebody tried to cross while the heavy flooding was still going on, and the person was carried away by the water current and eventually died. His corpse was carried away, and it took a serious search to be able to get his corpse that was taken to the morgue. As you can see, this waterway, as deep as it is, was completely filled, and the water went into the homes that are above, up this way to my right, and then the other side to my left. The whole place was filled by runoff, and the runoff that was coming at a very high speed, carrying away everything on its way. There are some homes here that have literally nothing in them anymore. Everything, the utensils, the household equipments, carried away by the runoff here in Bova Village, and this is what happened here on Saturday. And some of the people are still suffering the consequences of the heavy flooding that occurred here last Saturday, and they are, of course, crying out to the authorities to come to their rescue, not only to give them temporal aid or assistance, but to take adequate measures, because this could likely happen again if there are heavy downpours here in the town of Boya, and the people are living in uncertainty.
Thank you so much, Babila Jonathan. You are on the ground there in Boya to tell us what is actually happening there. You were talking to some of the victims, and you just told us that you spoke with more victims of the Boya floods which took place that was over the weekend. Let's listen to some of the victims who actually had enormous material damages. Well, we'll be coming back to the interview you did with some of the victims in Boya. That would be in the course of this newscast. Now we talk something else. In the meantime, 10-year-old Abubakari Ibrahim is still in pains after he was tortured, locked up in a room for a month, and later his hands burnt up by his biological father in the Mayo Sanaga division of the far north region of the country. The man accuses his son for stealing the sum of 70,000 francs CFA. Reason his two hands were burnt. The divisional officer who visited the child at the hospital called for the immediate arrest of the perpetrator, who happens to be his father. Let's now have more with Mala Glory.
This 10-year-old boy might never use his hands again, according to medics. His hands were allegedly burnt by his father, who accused the little boy of stealing the sum of 70,000 francs CFA. The boy was tortured and even locked up for at least a month. Only the intervention of neighbors made it possible for the child to be rushed to the hospital.
Le malade aux urgences présentait des pansements au niveau des deux membres supérieurs.
At the emergency ward, the patient presented to us some first aid treatment. We discovered some burst in the wounds. For that reason, we had to carry out an X-ray to determine the level of the wound. The result showed that the child's hands were amputated.
On se fera amputer des deux poignées des membres supérieurs.
After investigations in Basara village, Mayo Sanaga division, it was confirmed that the boy stole the sum of 1,000 francs instead of 70,000 francs. The senior divisional officer described the act as abominable as he visited the victim at the hospital. We just watched an abominable act committed by the father to this child, who, after locking the child in a room, he then lit up fire which burned the kid's hands. The father to the victim has been arrested and is presently under police custody for questioning.
And viewers, we told you in the headlines that insecurity is set to be in a drastic rise in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, with the killing of security forces. The most recent case is that of a police officer whose name we got as Makam Porosheri, who was kidnapped and killed allegedly. And before that, it was a case of a young girl of about 20 who traveled from Boya to Yaoundé. She was kidnapped and her lifeless body was only found somewhere around Van. Our reporter Lucille Yengu Esia spoke with some political analysts on the security situation in Cameroon, especially in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé.
Kidnap and killing of security forces in Cameroon, particularly in the country's political capital, Yaoundé, is fast gaining grounds. The most recent case is that of a police officer whose name we got as Faham Mankam Pusheri. She left her home on Saturday morning to the Mokolo market and never returned. Her body was later discovered and kept in the mortuary. Content Prince, the political analyst, says the political tension in the country is one of the causes of rising insecurity in Yaoundé.
We have to go deep into looking at the situations and what is happening in the country now. The crisis in the northwest and southwest with the influx of people from different parts of the country. Not only that, but you have the Boko Haram insurgency from the north, socio-cultural tension, you have tribalism, nepotism being the order of the day, you have partisan politics. Security challenges are affecting the country at this point. It's very, very dilapidated. It's very, very catastrophic for Cameroon. And the authorities that be must have to stand up.
Another political analyst thinks it's as a result of inadequate security.
Every
day, a group of bandits are being dissolved. This makes us to understand that even the police, gendarmes, in charge of maintaining order are equally being exposed to danger. This is really creating panic and fear. This has been a worrying situation to the population who think their safety is not sure. Those who are supposed to ensure the security of citizens are rather being killed and molested by unidentified men.
This is a very poor thing to know that as a civilian, you see a security officer being killed, then you actually say, what about my own life? How valuable is my own life? What can actually happen to me at any time? I'm as vulnerable as an ordinary other person, but these people who carry guns are supposed to be security officers. They are being killed on a daily basis. So it is very worrying. It's a worrying situation. That is why I say the authorities that be the national security, the national gendarmerie, the Ministry of Territorial Administration, they have to stand up at this point in time.
The population wish security be reinforced so as to reduce such barbaric acts in the country.
And now we talk something else. Roger Meyong is a new Director General of Taxes or Taxation. The newly appointed Directorate General of Taxes, Roger Atanas Meyong, that is his name, has a solid background in the field of taxation. A graduate of the Institute of International Relations of Cameroon, IBRIC, and the National School of Administration and Magistracy. In NAM, Roger has been at the Director General he was appointed the Directorate General of Taxes that was recently by a presidential decree. Let's now have more about him with a reporter for me, Armstrong Sander.
Roger Atanas Meyong Abad was Principal Inspector of Financial Administrations and former Head of Tax Inspection at the Directorate General of Taxes. A graduate of IBRIC, NAM and the École Supérieure des Mines de Paris in France, he holds a doctorate in taxation from the University of Paris-Dauphine. From 2014 to 2020, Meyong Abad Afanaz served as Directorate of Large Companies in Cameroon, contributing as an expert on Cameroon to the process of tax harmonization in Central Africa. A writer and a professor, he is an author of Tax and Customs Harmonization in the Semak sub-region. Under his predecessor Modeste Mopa at the helm of the Directorate General of Taxes, the overall revenue generated by the institution increased. The Directorate General of Taxes is today a huge challenge for public finance. Aware of this reality, the newly promoted Director General will work to continue the numerous reforms initiated by his predecessor, in particular the digitalization of services, which has substantially reduced the contact between tax agent and taxpayers. Recall that the former director Modeste Mopa was recently placed at the disposition of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF.
And our hopes for a better Semak sub-region now rest on the shoulders of two prominent figures. President Faustin Archange Touadéra of the Central African Republic and Balthasar Ngonga Edjo, who was Minister of State for Regional Integration in Equatorial Guinea. Let's now have more. They were appointed or made the head of Semak and president of the Semak Commission, respectively, at the 15th ordinary session of the Semak Summit in Yaoundé that was on March 17. In the report, it comes up next. Innocent as presents both personalities.
The appointment of Balthasar Ngonga Edjo as president of the Semak Commission reportedly came without surprise to many. The Equatorial Guinean, who has been Minister of State for Regional Integration for over 12 years, has since been approved for this newly earned function as he was considered favorite. The nephew of President Theodore Obiangema of Equatorial Guinea had become in recent years his country's main interlocutor with heads of CEMAC. Judging by his multiple trips to Yaoundé, shaking from hands with President Paul Biya, especially in 2020, it was clear he was paving his way up the ladder. Baltasa is aware of the challenges of the sub-region. He had chaired the CEMAC steering committee meeting. He is also bearer of sensitive issues on his shoulders, such as the France CFA and the infrastructural projects of the sub-region. On the other hand, the CEMAC presidency will be headed by the President of the Central African Republic, Faustin Archange Touadéra. He was passed on the mandate by President Paul Biya in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The new CEMAC leader, with dual doctorates in mathematics, has pledged to respect the rules governing the financial environment of CEMAC concerning cryptocurrencies. He had also reassured his peers during the one-day CEMAC Heads of State Summit he has no intention of leaving the community. The 65-year-old president, who has been in power since 2016, has been questioning the Western hegemony. In this sense, he has strongly brought his country closer to Russia. One of the last acts of this desire for emancipation consisted in the adoption in 2022 of Bitcoin among the legal tender currencies in the Central African Republic, a decision officially criticized within CEMAC. While the fate of the France CFA is also debated there, the presidency of Faustin Archange Touadéra could be one of the most scrutinized by experts.
And now, before we move on to sports, viewers, just to inform you that news just getting into our studio has it that most of the streets of the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, are now seriously flooded or inundated following heavy rains that battered the city. That was earlier today. We will sure be coming with the details in our subsequent news editions precisely at 8 p.m. Now we talk sports. 3 home-based players will be part of the national football team that is preparing to face Namibia in a 2-legged game, counting for the qualifiers of the AFCON 2023. The 3 players include Mbabi Marcelin, Guyan Thomas, Eta Barak, and Emmanuel Mahop. Did you know that Emmanuel Mahop was once a goalkeeper before deciding to hang up his gloves? Smart Ndikan Gabriel takes a look at Emmanuel Mahop of Canon Sportif of Yaoundé.
Emmanuel Mahop Dikonge from the Ngodi Bakoko neighborhood in Douala is currently the top goal scorer of the Elite One Championship with 10 goals for Canon Sportif of Yaoundé. He wasn't selected for the just-ended African Nations Championship (CHAN) that took place in Algeria, but he is lucky to be in the Lions' Den due to the injury of Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting. The most dreaded striker today of the Elite One Championship was once a goalkeeper. He trained alongside Andre Onana and Fabrice Ondwa at the Samuel Eto'o Foundation, then played for the Douala Athletic Club, Dark 2000 and Union Sportif, all Douala clubs, alongside Fufu Club of Baham as a goalkeeper. His show up as goalkeeper at Fufu Club of Baham earned him a vice-captain position in 2018. After helping Akonangi of Equatorial Guinea to the elite division, Emmanuel Mahop Dikonge dropped his gloves and decided to become a striker. According to Emmanuel Mahop Dikonge, his past as a goalkeeper helped him to develop his goal-scoring flair. Emmanuel Mahop Dikonge knows that a good performance, if given the opportunity to play against Namibia, will surely open the doors for selection in next year's AFCON 2023 to be hosted by Ivory Coast.
Thank you, Smart. Before we move on to the second part of the news, we also just got information that the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, has won all the 70 senatorial seats that were up for grabs in the just ended senatorial election in the country. The decision was made public a while ago by the Constitutional Council after I reviewed all the post-electoral litigations filed by opposition parties. Sure, we will also be coming back to that detailing. That would be at 8 p.m. That was it for the first part of the news, viewers. Don't go away. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight, we will continue talking about the floods in Boya, which caused enormous material damage and also the loss of human lives. So we have to continue talking about that until something is done to ensure that such a catastrophe doesn't happen again in Boya. And you watched in the course of the news that our reporters are in Boya to tell us or give the public information on what actually happened and what measures are being put in place by the local authorities in Boya to ensure that something does not happen like that again in Boya. And our guest tonight is Senator Mbela Moki Charles. He is a former mayor of the Boya municipality. He was mayor and headed that municipality for a very long time before he was elected senator. He was interviewed in Boya by our reporter, our special envoy Babila Jonathan, who is on the ground. Hello, Babila. What did the senator say about what happened in Boya that was over the weekend?
Right, Annabella, our guest today is Senator Mbela Moki Charles, and we're going to be discussing about this incident that happened on Saturday, and of course the consequences, and also be looking at the way forward. What should be done as a matter of urgency to secure lives now, and what should be done in the long term to be able to ensure that this does not happen again. Senator Mbela Moki Charles, thank you for accepting to talk to us.
Thank you. You're welcome. I think that what has happened in Boya is a huge lesson that has to be treated seriously, in the sense that human life is in danger in this community. You can see that the outpouring of the waters from the mountains, I'm talking about this huge monster that deposited the debris within Boya town. It was not all of Boya. It was particularly targeted at Boya town. It reminds those of us who are of the indigenous community in this town to consider that we are Africans, and things like this don't happen. They don't happen under normal conditions. This is the month of May. We are not yet in April, May, June. So if the first rains within 2.5 hours could set the town into panic and cause the amount of destruction, devastated human lives and property, then we need to rethink. And I think the way forward is that we should...
Before we look at the way forward, Mr. Senator, this has been happening, but this time was very much more different from what's been happening before. It was more serious than what's been happening before. Can you just tell us a little more about this change compared to what was happening before?
I am saying that we are having this in the month of March. Usually we had this in the months of August, September. It is very unusual. And considering that the outpouring of waters and debris from the mountains into town was focused on a particular area, Boya town towards Ewunda Bova, calls for all of us to look at it with particular attention. It is extraordinary, unimaginable, and unbelievable. I say it, and I've said it before, we are Africans. We should not pretend. It is true that scientific research has an interpretation of what we saw. But we need to sit down as a community. We need to look at it as a community of people who have measured similar occurrences in the areas of lava flows from the mountains, earth tremors, and of course whirlwinds that have occurred in Boya, and of course torrential downpours and runoffs from the mountain. But this one was of extraordinary dimensions and will require an extraordinary response.
We just come in from Bova, where we're told by the people that we met the family of the young man of about 27 years old who tried to cross over when the runoff was actually coming down from the mountain, and he was swept away. And we're also hearing about some 2 children who were killed. A corpse was discovered this morning. What more do we know about these consequences of the floods?
We are yet to establish the exact results that are pronounced by the man on the street and from the rumors we get from some communities. But the truth is that human life has been lost, and we are facing a catastrophe. We cannot deny that fact. So we should stop all the public shows that we are conducting around in terms of gathering people to exhibit all of what we call it what you like. This will require an urgent assembly of this community as a people, bringing all the expert ideas we have in this community, study this problem in a holistic but in a collegial manner, and address this urgency of the moment.
What are some of the quick solutions that can be taken now, some quick measures, and notably to secure lives of those living around the waterways in Boya Town, in Bova, and so on?
The City Council is in action. I commend the efforts of the mayor. I want to thank him for his quick response. He rushed on that day from a distant engagement and immediately swung into action. That is how we have to help the council. That is how we have to help the mayor of the town. The governor has assumed his responsibility. I'm telling you, from the day this occurrence was witnessed in Boya, the governor has known no sleep. I remember him calling my phone even at midnight, asking what suggestions and opinions I have. That is leadership. And I want to thank all of them, the administrative authorities and political authorities who have shown concern on all of this. As a representative of the people, I think that action of the mayor should be supported. We saw the youths of Bonalionga yesterday assemble, those of Wondongo assemble. They took upon themselves to rescue missions and address very delicate situations. They got into gutters, dug out property from the mud, from the debris. They were in search of survivors inside this whole cacophony of what came down from the mountain. This is what we want to see, a city united in action for its own safety.
Now, houses built on waterways are being destroyed, notably in Boya Town. The houses are being demolished right now. The people are acknowledging the fact that the council is doing well to open up the waterway, but they are worried about the fact that many of them are now homeless, and they are really very much abandoned to themselves, according to what they told us. Now, that action of destruction of houses on the waterway, is it the right solution? Is it a solution?
It may be a solution, but it is not going to be long-lasting. That is why I was talking about the various components of our community coming together to look at it in a holistic manner, in a very collegial way. That is to say, those who have lost homes, those who have no place to stay, should have those who can afford to accommodate them. We should have centers that should pick up these people and give them refuge on temporary basis. We should be able to have the community rise up to contribute for a sustainable management of the entire crisis. It is not just looking at a segment of it where people will come from Yaoundé, dance around and get away without keep having a mechanism to do a follow-up, to sustainably keep assure these people that life has to continue and they should remain hopeful in dignity and in full respect of their human rights.
Those that we spoke to in Bova and Buea town are saying that the local authorities, government should relocate them to a safer area as soon as possible. Should that not be a quick action that should be taken like immediately?
Of course, these are the kind of options, these are the kind of proposals I'm making, these are the kind of things we want to hear. We sit down with the people, we listen to them, we sit down with people, we hear their proposals, we sit down with experts on these executing agencies will come in and bring in ideas. People who have faced similar situations will come in and talk from experience. We need all of this synergy of action to produce the desired results. In fact, it is a very huge challenge that is hanging on the people of Buea and all community leaders. That is why I left the Senate and I am here to be part of the suffering that the people are undergoing at this time. I share in their plight and I want to be part of a follow-up to the solution to these problems.
You were once the mayor of Buea, and there are people who are building on risk zones. Some of those areas that are affected today are actually risk zones, close to the mountain and so on. People building houses on waterways. What do you say about this and what should be done about this?
If you have an institution like the local council, some of their agents have to be held responsible for what is happening, because the mayor cannot be on the field every day. But he has agents who are permanently on the field. They see this abusive construction of houses every day and they condone all of this. They should be penalized. They should be treated accordingly. The mayor may not have signed a building permit for an individual. If you move up to the presidency, just a stone throw from here, you will see someone constructing by the presidential guest house in a valley that is a waterway. Everybody passes and sees it, but the construction is going on. Babila, tell me, what do you do? It has to be investigated, and let us know who permitted that individual to construct on such a place. This is a particular situation, but it happens all over the town. People have blocked the waterways. We did not allow such things to happen at our time. We swung into action, and I'm happy the mayor has swung into action now. People are going to pay a price for all of that. All of this delinquent behavior is not typical of Buea at all. Buea is a place which is known for its legendary hospitality. That has to be translated into building an environment and a community that can accommodate everybody in safety, in harmony, and in the true spirit of our legendary hospitality. It is not the cacophony, this disorder. You get to the roads, the taxi drivers drive without driving licenses. They insult, abuse, and disturb everybody. We cannot continue like this. Insecurity now sets in, disorder sets in, and this is not typical of Buea. I can tell you, the next thing we are seeing now is the disaster that is being talked about, that we are witnessing in Buea. My brothers, I'm talking to the people of Buea, the entire community called Buea. We need to sit down as a people. The solution cannot come from a former mayor of Buea or a sitting senator. The solution lies with the people of Buea themselves, who know what is right. There is nothing wrong in fixing what is wrong with what is right. And I believe that by the grace of God, we are going to get out of this as well, provided we create that enabling environment that will permit every useful opinion and idea from the good people of Buea to emerge in a fertile environment where we can analyze it is not the mayor, it is not the senator. It is not like that. We have a community which is rich in expertise, which is rich with men and women of caliber and timber and caliber who can afford to put out what is in them for the good of everyone and bring the greatest good to the greatest numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Senator.
You're welcome, sir.
That was Senator Mbelamoki Charles, former mayor of Buea, sitting member of Cameroon's upper house of parliament. That was it from us, Anabila.
Thank you so much, Babila, and thank you, Senator Mbelamoki Charles, for accepting to talk to us tonight. And Babila, we wish you and the team a safe journey back to base. Viewers, thank you so much for always being with us.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.